I think I hit the button. Yay, I'm here. Froze. Anyway, alright, value problems again. Value. This discussion needs to take place. It's related to a lot of different conversations. I mean, it's a core, it's a root thing. And people really do have to get a handle on it, grip on it, understand it, some sort of coherent way. Certainly as a minimum to conversation, we need some sort of common language, common concepts to convey, to communicate these ideas with each other. So anyway, let's just rudimentarize things, cut everything down to real basics. So let's say there was no biology here in front of me. There's no biological organisms. So I'm just on a planet and it's just rocks. Okay, that's it, just rocks. And they've been rocks for 4 billion years, and once in a while an asteroid hits and blows up and stuff, and some new rocks bounce around, but other than that, nothing happens. Day in, day out, hot, cold, just rocks. What can I create there? What can I do to that circumstance to improve it? Okay? Do I make rock walls? If I make the rocks into patterns, have I done something that matters? Have I improved the circumstance? Is it sell for more, the property now, to the non-existent buyers? What as a practical matter, the rocks don't need anything, right? I mean, they don't need a nice chair to sit in. They don't need television shows. They don't need medicine. They don't need health care plans. They don't need anything. There's absolutely nothing I can do for the rocks that'll make their existence better. They are unconsolable. They are unfixable. They are anything. I can't do a single thing to enhance that circumstance. There's no act I can act on it to make it better. That's the basic argument, right? Now, people will say, you could create a man. I could be God. And I could take one of the rocks and, do the Adam and Eve ribby thing or whatever. Take a rock and paint a smiley face on it and say, you are now a man, and poof, consciousness into it. And make it into a biological organism. And give it a woman. And now it has a garden of Eden for this two little sentient rocks to go bopping around in and making more, presumably, in the future, through some sort of magical mechanism, where, yes, where does the wife of the sun come from, correct? Yeah, that extra woman's always a problem. Anyway, let's just say they are fruitful and multiply. So you have a little village of rocks. Well, let's just stay with Adam and Eve rock for a while. Now I have their comfort. Now we have a definite notion of a capacity to improve things, because now the rock can be in states. It can be in comfortable states and uncomfortable states. Good states, bad states. And so sort of my first thing is going to be, are they warm enough? I mean, do they need an enclosure to keep the sun off them, or to keep them warm when the planet rotates? The first thing is going to be to keep them out of horrible space, right? That would be the first logical impulse, is to prevent horror, okay? Prevent them from screaming in pain and anguish. It seems logical, right? There can't be a counter argument for that, can there? Is there some other argument that something else should be the priority? That seems like the first priority. To evade destruction and harm and suffering, big suffering. Get the worst of the risk out of the equation. So that would be the first thing you do is, okay, make some sort of enclosure, give them, or, just create a better environment, whatever. So let's say once you've done that, what's next? Is to enhance the experience, enhance the gameplay, right? Because now this is all you say to yourself. What is this thing that I've created? Well, it seems that these things I've created like to play games. Okay, they're competitive. They like to have little contests of wit or physical strength, or let's see, what else do they like to do? It's kind of weird, just because even the romantic elements of ourselves is sort of tied into the competitive nature game, and it's kind of hard to even imagine what it would be like never to know any other woman but one ever existing, and understanding desire in that context, because that is kind of a bizarre context. You'd have to use your imagination, I suppose, to create all the other young women who are jealous, or all the other men who are jealous, or something else to make the fantasy of your conquest complete. I don't know whether you could actually feed, it'd be enough food for a human ego, unless you did create the village. So the alpha could do the alpha, and feel it rushing through him, so to speak. But let's just stick with the idea that we sort of understand that it is a game, and psychology game, right? This would be the obvious conclusion. We know the little rock guys, what do they want to do? They like eating, but they don't eat this much, and then they have to stop for a while, and they like doing the sex thing because they've been designed to do that. So if they can only do that this much, it's all this amounts of stuff you can do, and you have to sort of build up energy to do it. A real good hunger, a real good need for it, to invest the energy required to do it right. I don't know how far I can play this out in terms of the point I'm making, which is that obviously when you try to make this thing, if I had my name on it, this was signature in Mendham, life, it would be troublesome to figure out, how to create this psychology. What kind of contrived mechanisms of psychology do I impose? And what are the implications of that? Especially when you get into the complexities of societies, of individuals, and then you have this whole problem of our competitive nature and the fact that we often need to feed on exploitation, feed on defeating our lessers. So anyway, ultimately, the point I want to make, the point I'm making, I think I'm just not wanting to make it, I think I am making it. It's always interesting when you get these little tiny bits of snow left. It's kind of funny. Is that, there's no fundamental need. When the world was just rocks, there was no need to create anything else. There was no need for humans to occupy them. And we can sort of know this as a fact in so many ways, but I've used analogies of, there's no Martians or Moonikins or all these other things, and we're not shedding any tears over it. We're not lamenting. And I think we're also not lamenting that theoretically, little tiny people could live on here. It's theoretically possible that you could have little tiny people. And instead of having 7 billion people on Earth, we could have 7 gazillion. If we made them small enough. I mean, right now, there's, living people that are barely 2 feet tall. They're fully functional mostly, for the most part. And yeah, so we just keep going smaller and smaller until we make ourselves into little insects. You know, still human, but we could do it, theoretically. We could miniaturize our existence, and we could, you know, you could have, you know, 1 million people living on 10 square feet of dirt, if we think it's so cool to be alive. But we don't waste any time imagining that, because it isn't about it. We know that, you know, when you think about it, that life is only meaningful because of what you are attached to, what you're hungry for in it. And that it's only that hunger that provides all the justification. That it isn't, it's nothing without my desire. So if I don't like, for example, some sort of food, like, I don't know, soy, or let's make up a food that I don't like, eggs, quiche or something, big quiche pie over there. Yeah, I know it's food. I know it can be used as food, but I personally got no use for it. I personally don't need it. I don't want it to exist. So it's just meaningless to me. It's dirt. It's not food. It's not desirable. And, you know, that's the real point here. Is that all of this contrived talk about the value of our existence is lost in this stupid, just subjective notions of function. And it's really quite personal. And that's what all these pro-lifers need to acknowledge. That's just a subjectively generated, personally generated obsession, addiction, attachment, a need. That the quiche in and of itself is just eggs. Just crap. It has no intrinsic anything. And that's what life has. It has no intrinsic function. It therefore can have no intrinsic value. And therefore, when you recognize that it comes at a very high price, that it can't be justified. You can't pay real money for nothing. You went to the store and you paid $10,000 for a bucket of nothing, you'd be called an idiot, an asshole, or a fucktard. Or a chainsaw people looking at me like I'm nuts. What the hell are they doing up there? How you doing? All right. I don't know. Cutting a tree in the middle of nowhere for no purpose. Cool. With all the trees that are cut down, all the trees on the ground here, it seems kind of amazing. The nothing tree getting cut down. See, like that would be another scenario where maybe they're just horny to cut down trees. But there's no need. So it's like, why waste the gas? Why be out in the cold? Why expend the risk to cut down a nothing tree? To cut down nothing for no purpose. And that's all living does. Creating life is to create a purposeless, pointless thing, a quiche, for which only you have to make things hungry for it, for them to see any value in it. It's totally, it totally can make no real value. It can only consume the value you expended in it. I mean, you can only have the deficit. You can never create a profit. So you at best might be able to get your money back when you try to resell your nothing tree or your nothing purchase, your bucket of nothing. But the odds are you're not going to get the price. You're not going to get away with free. You're going to lose more and pay more. And it's stupid. Anyway. This, like I said, this is an argument I can see where it's going to have to keep being played with and picked at. Because people just don't seem to want to acknowledge the fact that all their desires are addictions. That they're all made out of a contrivance, a perception of value, not an identification of value. And that the only wants we have that are legitimate are the wants we have for somebody else to be extracted from harm. The wants where we want a more equitable world, a fairer game, where we want a loss minimized, where we want an expense not to be paid. My roof. I don't know how. The wind must be quiet. I have to nail it on. That would probably be the appropriate thing to do. Fuck. It's a little bit cold. I guess that's why there's still a little bit of snow. Wow, this thing really took a hit. All falling down. Much repairing to do. Not today. Anyway, till next time. Flurries. Lovely. Such.